seemed like, is this really gonna happen?
Right.
You know, I could tell like some people were skeptical.
Right. I mean, you would hear all the time people being like, "They're not gonna make the club. What are you doing out there?"
Yeah.
They're not gonna make the club. And I always viewed it as a low risk, high reward move. Because so right before the pandemic hit is when I went full time. Pandemic hit, obviously not going out, so I moved back in with my parents. I'm living there because I'm not paying LA prices if I'm not gonna do anything on stage. And then they live in the Bay Area. I was doing outdoor shows. Dylan hits me up, hey, you got to move. Derek, Jeffrey Berner also had moved here before me. They're like, you got to come. So I stayed in their place for a little bit, 2 weeks, and I was like, oh, I got to come. I got to come because at the worst, I come out here and get stage time in front of people.
Yeah.
At the worst.
When you first came here, was I even talking about opening a club yet?
Yes. So for me, what made it real that you were opening the club is that I heard Adam and Curtis were coming over, and I was like, "Oh, he's serious about opening the club." There's no because I heard the news, and I was like, "Oh, am I gonna have to move to Austin?" And then you hired those two, and I was like, "Oh, this is happening." And then my friends were also be like, "Hey, you gotta come out here. There is time, and you can get good out here."
Well, it was a perfect storm of LA closing down, the Comedy Store they're closed down, so everyone's out of work. So all those people didn't have jobs anymore, and so I said, "I'll hire you now." And you don't have a job for like a year and a half, but you start getting paid immediately.
That's a good deal.
Well, I was like, listen, man, I'm going to make it as nice and easy as possible. I was like, come to Austin, enjoy the city for a year, and then we'll call for you. And then we'll do this. We'll really do this.
Yeah, and then it opened, and you could just feel it immediately.
I didn't think it was going to take as long as it took, but that was because we had another building, and the building owned by the cult, and that shit fell apart. But lucky it fell apart, man, because it's like where we got is the best spot in the world. That 6th Street is like no other place, man. It's just hopping with people. They close it down to car traffic, and there's just people walking on the streets, and the energy is crazy.
Right. It's the energy at 6th Street is nuts. It is wild.
But it helps the show, man. It's like there's so much wild shit going on outside that when you there's live music playing everywhere. There's like a feeling in the air. And then you go to the club, and it's rocking. It's like, oh, shit, this is the spot.
Yeah, it just feels like a place that's it just connected with everything.
It's just different than any other place we've ever been to. But it's also the only place that I've ever worked at where a comic ran it. Like a comic built it, and they built it just for comedy. There's no business partners or fucking weird money people that want you to charge more for that or pay the comics less or make our own rules.
It's what they talk about at the stores of like a comics playground. It's an artist playground. Like here you can like take chances. You can really like be free artistically. What I like about sort of theory I have is because I started in San Diego, which is a pretty red city in a blue state, and now we're in a blue city in a red state. Like that's sort of the best mix for comedy. Yeah. You get all sorts of people all across the spectrum, and that's like this is what America really is. There's people who believe this, people who believe this. They're all in one place. Can you make all of them laugh at once?
Yeah. It's also people that recognize there's a new scene here. So there's like this energy to that, and they want to come experience it. Right. Because there really haven't been, like Austin had a scene. It had a small scene. There was always some good comics that came out of Austin. Because like Hicks was here for a while, and there's like a history of good comedy out of Austin, but it didn't have like a community like we have now. There's nothing like it, where all these world-class comedians had moved to a city. Right. That never really happened before.
It just kind of became an A city. I mean, the only time it really happened, I feel like, is when Carson moved to L.A.
Well, I bet L.A. had comics already, though, no?
I mean, I'd imagine so, but then you hear, like, I guess my view is the view of the Comedy Store's history, but, all these people all these high-level comics came from New York, right? It's like
when
Letterman,
Carlson
Leno.
Moved to LA?
Yeah.
Really?
I think the Tonight Show being in L.A. was a big monumental shift in people being like, oh, let me come here.
Well, that was back in the time where a spot on the Tonight Show could make your career. Right. Like, that's when I first saw Richard Jeni. I was like, wow, who's this guy? He did a spot on the Tonight Show. And you would get these like 5 to 7 minute spots, and guys would prep forever for that spot. They just wanted that one. There was some guys that only had like one killer 7 minutes. because their whole idea was just get on Letterman, get on the Tonight Show, get on something. And that was BO comedy hours. This is pre-everything.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember reading stories about like, Freddie Prinze got called over to the couch on his first time. That never happens to anybody.
Well, also you got to remember, what were the numbers back then for the Tonight Show?
Oh, they must have been massive, right? There's only one of 4 shows you can watch at the time.
Right. What were what was the average Tonight Show ratings in 1978? See if you can find that.
Yeah, that's
I bet it's nuts.
It's got to be in the tens of millions, right?
Yeah,
it has to be.
I want to think like 25 million. And again, this is at 11 p.m. at night, too.
Right.
So people are kind of tired and they're laying in bed. And it's Johnny Carson. He was the king.
Right.
With his desk. They all did the same thing, the desk and the chair. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why do you have a desk? Are you doing work? Like, it's so weird you have a desk. But everybody had a desk.
Everyone had a desk, yeah.
I guess it was like Jack Parr who started it out. It was Steve Allen or Jack Parr, whoever was the first one. Because there was Tonight Show guys before Johnny Carson.
Right.
And whoever it was, they had a desk. Because like back then, if you were the boss, you sat behind the desk.
Would the Ed Sullivan Show fall in this sort of world? What was that?
Ed Sullivan.
Because that, in my mind, that seems to be like the precursor of all this and sort of what set this up.
Yeah. Lenny Bruce did the Ed Sullivan Show.
The Beatles, famously.
Yeah. Who else? A lot of people did it. Yeah. Was he the first? Was Ed Sullivan the first?
It feels like, from my understanding of it, it feels like he was like the first megastar.
Jackie Mason got banned from the Ed Sullivan Show because Ed Sullivan said Jackie gave him the finger.
Really?
Yeah, but Jackie swears he didn't give him the finger. He's just doing his hands, doing my hand gestures. And he did something, and Ed Sullivan said, that fucking guy gave me the finger. He's never coming back.
Damn.
See if you can find what that is. What happened with Jackie Mason on the Ed Sullivan Show. What year was that?
It's got to be, what, like the 50s, 60s, or early 60s? We're talking about Mason.
Do we find out what the ratings were for 1978?
I was digging to 78. There's just most of the stuff talking about the ratings is about its last week and last show.
What is that?
Well, it's 50 million for the final show.
Oh my God.
That's
Average 19
crazy.
Oh my. Yeah. Hey woman, since your man ain't got no heart, why don't you go to our apartment tonight and I'll show you a real man. There you go. What? Fuck you. Hey woman, since your man ain't got no heart, why don't you go to our apartment tonight and I'll show you a real man. There you go. What? Fuck you.